We watch a Russian platoon of 35 to 50 men push forward, seizing what appears to be key terrain, notching a minor tactical victory. But hours later, or even minutes, my sensors show that exact pocket of land becoming a lethal kill box. Heavy artillery rains down, our drones circle overhead, armor is vaporized, enemy casualties spike, yet the front line remains static. This is not about a single trench or tree line, this is modern attrition warfare. To the untrained eye, Ukrainian forces look like they are retreating, yielding ground, and leaving critical defensive gaps. What looks like a rout is actually a calculated, tactical maneuver. An outpost is not abandoned out of weakness. We yield it because its tactical utility has been completely exhausted. The true counterstrike falls only after enemy forces occupy the zone and grow complacent. Most civilian analysts completely miss this. In a theater with 24/7 drone surveillance, the concept of holding ground has evolved. We no longer measure control by temporary physical presence. A sector is only valuable if it can be sustained without taking unsustainable losses. This basic truth shifts the strategic balance far beyond the simple static lines shown on traditional battle maps. Let us be clear, classic military doctrine is often taught in overly simplistic terms. An aggressor strikes a defender, digs in, and command tries to hold every coordinate to the bitter end. Under that outdated paradigm, victory seems clear-cut on our command boards. If the enemy breaches our perimeter and gains territory, they win. If we maintain control of our defensive sector, we stand firm. That linear model has dictated our war college lectures for generations, and it still skews how modern tactical reports are interpreted. But that linear framework fails completely in this environment. The Ukrainians do not face a peer adversary with equal troops, equivalent fires, or matching armor reserves. The Russian army launched this campaign with a massive force structure, vast manpower reserves, and the industrial capacity to replace destroyed armor and personnel despite staggering casualty rates. This asymmetry means a numerically inferior force cannot afford to wage a symmetrical war of attrition. If we attempt to match a larger adversary position for position and trench for trench, our attrition rates will spike catastrophically. An army with superior mass can absorb horrific casualties and keep attacking, banking on the belief that brute force pressure will break us. In such a meat grinder, a smaller force can only delay the enemy's push while risking the total destruction of its elite units and critical gear on low-value terrain that is simply not worth the sacrifice. That is why modern Ukrainian commanders have abandoned the outdated doctrine of rigid area defense. Rather than treating every single forward trench as an absolute hold-at-all-costs position, they use forward strongpoints as temporary buffer zones within an elastic deep defense. That approach is highly flexible and built entirely around harsh combat realities. Force preservation must take priority over holding every single meter of dirt around the clock. A ruined village, a simple tree line, or a shattered strongpoint may seem valuable in the moment, but bleeding our forces dry to hold them invites a massive strategic collapse tomorrow. Do not misunderstand me, these coordinates are not worthless and they are not being handed over willingly. The tactics are deeper, we occupy them, fall back, and hammer the enemy once they move in. Tactical success is not defined by who enters the sector first. It is defined by whether that movement exposes the enemy to a lethal counterstrike. In our planning, geography is merely a phase in a sequence, not the ultimate objective. As officers, we must never mistake a disciplined retrograde maneuver for a panicked retreat. Disengagement looks chaotic through a long-range feed, particularly in dynamic firefights. But look beyond the optics to the tactical intent. When a tactical vanguard executes a highly disciplined, planned withdrawal, they are preventing the enemy from pinning them down, flanking them, or obliterating them with heavy fires. This maneuver buys critical time for our artillery batteries, heavy strike drones, and reserve elements to establish superior firing positions. Therefore, falling back is never a sign of defeat. It is a calculated command decision to engage the enemy on our own terms. That deliberate choice defines the true, brutal nature of this modern conflict. In this theater, survival hinges on force preservation and compounding the enemy's operational cost. To dissect how we create these tactical opportunities, we must look directly at the topography. As any commander knows, terrain is never just a backdrop for combat. It is a tactical instrument used to shape the engagement area. An effective defense weaponizes the earth itself. Fighting on familiar ground gives Ukrainian forces a massive, highly asymmetric advantage. This creates an operational leverage that never shows up on daily casualty charts or command maps. The units on the ground know every dirt road, every tree line. The field trails ruined villages, and the natural bottlenecks where enemy movement becomes sluggish and highly predictable. This means every square inch of the battle space is prepared with deliberate lethal intent. Minefields, razor wire, and physical barriers do far more than merely slow down a Russian assault force. Their true purpose is route engineering. They make certain avenues look entirely unviable while funneling the enemy toward more tempting pathways. To a novice, this looks like basic defensive doctrine. In reality, it is a masterclass in force channeling. You are not just blocking the enemy, you are herding them directly into your pre-sighted kill zones. An infantry squad in open terrain maintains tactical flexibility, dispersing and adapting as the battle unfolds. But squeeze that same squad into a narrow corridor, and they become predictable. That is when you seize the initiative. The pathway ahead looks open, but tactically its value is already compromised. The defending commander already knows exactly where the pressure will hit and how the threat will develop. What the attacker perceives as a safe advance is actually a calculated trap. This geometric design is vital under total aerial surveillance. Modern warfare ruthlessly punishes any high concentration of forces. Squeeze a unit, and they are easily targeted. Halt an armored vehicle at a barrier, and it instantly draws devastating fire. A covered approach can quickly transform into a geometric corridor, allowing drone pilots to track every step from above. This is the sheer danger of restricted avenues under persistent overhead surveillance. They do not just kill mobility, they eliminate tactical uncertainty for the command elements watching them. There is a deeper psychological dynamic at play in these defensive setups. Russian units face immense pressure to maintain forward momentum and secure fast, reportable victories. That desperation drives them onto the pathways that promise the speediest, most direct breakthrough. But high speed inside a pre-sighted kill box is a fatal illusion, not an advantage. Once an enemy enters ground, we have pre-configured they completely yield operational control. They are no longer fighting on their own terms. They are marching into a spatial geometry engineered for their destruction. That is the essence of the trap. These tactical obstacles are not deployed merely to freeze the enemy at a single grid coordinate. The goal is to manipulate the enemy commander's next decision and every move thereafter. The attacker reacts to an obstacle and takes the bait. The defender has already scripted that reaction. The hostile force believes they have found a vulnerability. In reality, we see a narrowing channel that is easily monitored, perfectly timed, and ready to be struck. Yet this defense mechanism fails if you treat forward trenches as sacred, immovable ground. A tactical funnel works only if the enemy enters it. A kill zone functions only when the defender chooses not to die holding it. This brings us to the most vital phase of the operational plan. The trap only functions when the defending forces refuse to fight a static war to the death. The most critical phase of the fight begins when our forces choose to yield the forward line. That deliberate withdrawal is what turns a standard engagement into a highly structured trap. Rather than stacking heavy manpower directly on the line of contact, Ukrainian commanders employ highly mobile teams that spot harass the enemy and conduct a structured retrograde. This tactical approach minimizes exposure to massive artillery and drone barrages, which easily obliterate any static force concentrated in a single grid square. These light screen forces are never expected to halt an armored thrust alone, nor are they ordered to fight to the last breath. Their operational directive is far more precise. Our vanguard makes contact fires just enough to draw them in, and then conducts a disciplined retrograde on my signal. This tactical withdrawal is never chaotic. It is a calculated, synchronized maneuver designed to feed the enemy a false sense of victory. To the Russian commanders, this looks like a decisive breakthrough. Our defensive line seemingly buckles resistance drops, and our infantry retreats. Historically, that is exactly what any advancing assault element expects before capturing their objective. It signals that their heavy pressure is working. That battlefield illusion is critical because it dictates their next tactical blunder. Believing they have forced a rout, the enemy blindly overextends, rushing forward to consolidate their newly won ground. This is how we weaponize psychology on the modern battlefield. Our headquarters does not just manage physical grid squares, we shape the adversary's cognitive reality. To an uneducated observer, a highly controlled tactical withdrawal looks identical to a total defensive collapse. Once that trap is set, the enemy commits their reserves deep into our sector, thinking the danger is over. In truth, their casualty probability spikes with every step. I have watched this exact flaw-plagued Russian assault groups repeatedly. Their operational doctrine demands fast surges, seizing immediate objectives and maintaining relentless forward momentum. Confronted by what looks like a soft spot, their commanders press the attack rather than halting to reassess. They are driven by top-down pressure to report quick victories, rigid military habits, or the arrogant belief that our lines will simply continue to crumble. Consequently, they flood into empty sectors that our scouts have already targeted. The real danger does not begin when our troops abandon the trench line. That is merely the transition phase. The true trap snaps shut when enemy units occupy that empty ground. By then, they are no longer entering a blind spot. They have walked directly into a pre-sighted kill zone mapped out and primed for our kinetic response. Inside the zone, their momentum stalls. They pause to regroup, secure their flanks, and organize the next phase. That brief hesitation is our window. The longer they linger in our sights, the more predictable their disposition becomes. We have already mapped their approach routes, cover points, and likely vehicle staging areas. Their hard-won tactical victory rapidly morphs into fatal exposure. From this point, the initiative shifts instantly. Their newly seized objective is no longer a prize. It is a zeroed-in target under our constant, unblinking surveillance. With the stage set, the execution begins. As our drones and heavy artillery turn their brief triumph into a slaughter, our true counteroffensive hits only when they think the fighting is done. That is the genius of our doctrine. The very moment their leading assault elements occupy the coordinates and begin trying to dig in, we do not waste infantry in close-quarters skirmishes. We let our overhead assets and long-range systems do the work. This is the exact instant their tactical progress turns into a death sentence. Our aerial reconnaissance assets are vital here. They do far more than just confirm enemy arrivals. They map troop concentrations, record unit densities, and analyze the orientation of armor, determining whether the enemy plans to advance further, dig in, or request immediate reinforcement. This relentless telemetry provides our command staff with something far more critical than a static report. It grants us precise timing. In high-tech conflict, timing dictates lethality as much as raw payload. A single kinetic strike at the perfect moment yields far greater results than massive salvos fired too late. Therefore, our defensive doctrine prioritizes standoff precision fires over bloody close-quarters engagements. Our mortars respond in seconds, while heavy tube artillery hammers them before they can organize. Loitering munitions and FPV drones hunt down survivors and neutralize remaining armor, or punishing any desperate movement after the initial impact. This operational posture allows us to inflict catastrophic attrition on the adversary, without risking our own infantry in hazardous close-quarters combat. In my doctrine, we shift the burden of destruction to shells, drones, and guided munitions, sparing our infantry from direct rifle fire and counterattacks. If we ordered our men to retake every minor trench by moving across exposed ground, we would trigger the exact type of bloodbath that spikes casualties on both sides. By leveraging remote fires, we transfer the risk from our frontline infantry directly onto the enemy, stumbling into our trap. An enemy assault group, believing they have secured a foothold, suddenly finds themselves targeted by precision assets they simply cannot counter in time. As an analyst, I see why this works. Our forces typically withdraw from that exact sector moments before the strike. That means our tactical maps already list the precise coordinates and cover the primary entry vectors and the exact kill zones where the enemy will pause. This pre-existing data dramatically shortens our sensor-to-shooter loop. Counter battery and defensive fires become incredibly swift and lethal, but in my experience, the threat never ends with the first impact. If the enemy attempts to retreat, we already have their escape corridors under tight observation. When they push reinforcements or logistics vehicles forward, they run straight into pre-registered artillery fire, active minefields, and relentless drone surveillance. Their newly seized position fails to serve as a staging ground for any further advance. Instead, it becomes a meat grinder where ingress, egress, and any attempt to consolidate are met with extreme hazard. This is the core of our doctrine. We are not trying to defend every trench by sacrificing our soldiers. We seek to dictate the operational tempo through superior intelligence, meticulous preparation, and perfectly timed counters. The decisive factor is rarely the boots on the ground anymore. Far more often it is the eyes in the sky, the pre-sighted heavy artillery, and the kinetic strike that lands the moment the enemy lets their guard down. I analyze this strategy not by looking at single engagements, but by how we shape the theater over weeks and months. Our command is not attempting to win through static head-on battles of brute attrition. We focus on minimizing friendly casualties while exponentially driving up the price the attacker must pay. By combining precise timing, constant intelligence, and standoff weapons, we mitigate risk and force the advancing enemy to bear all the danger. This dynamic fundamentally rewrites how we evaluate battle damage assessments. Ceding a minor strongpoint temporarily might seem like a tactical failure to an untrained eye. But when that pocket becomes a pre-planned kill zone, where the enemy is continuously tracked, and systematically destroyed, the strategic value of that loss completely shifts. Acquiring physical territory means nothing if it immediately transforms into a lethal trap where survival is measured in minutes. In our planning, we view their short-term map gains as a prelude to a prolonged phase of crushing attrition that hollows out their units. This reality is inescapable in a theater where continuous drone surveillance leaves nowhere left to hide. Total battlefield transparency means any troop concentrations, maneuvering, or hesitation are instantly flagged. An enemy element assembling after an assault might think they are consolidating, but in reality, they are merely presenting a highly concentrated target for our fire support. Under these modern conditions, simply securing an objective does not neutralize the risk. Often it initiates an even deadlier tactical phase. Any objective that cannot be fortified, safely supplied with critical ammunition, or reinforced, without taking devastating casualties offers zero strategic value despite what the map might claim for a few brief hours. The power to watch, decide, and strike with absolute precision easily overrides the simple act of occupying physical terrain. I see two fundamentally opposing military doctrines clash here. One fixates on linear progress, pushing red lines forward and treating every square meter of captured Earth as a victory. Our philosophy, prioritizing the preservation of combat power, maintaining tactical flexibility, and maximizing enemy attrition over the long term. When these contrasting concepts collide, in theater, victory is rarely decided by the side initiating the assault. Instead, it is determined by who manages the tactical fallout of those maneuvers more ruthlessly. This is why the outdated doctrine of holding ground at all costs is obsolete. On a modern battlefield ruled by persistent surveillance and rapid strike, staying static does not buy safety, it invites disaster. Mobility, situational awareness, and timing now supersede concrete and steel. A smaller, nimble force that masters the art of the retrograde, the reposition, and the ambush can generate asymmetric pressure far beyond its physical size. Through my lens, what appears to be a tactical retreat is actually the opening gambit in a coordinated trap. This is the fundamental shift. Modern conflict is no longer a race to seize physical terrain. It is about dictating the next move. The brutal reality we face is that holding a position on the map no longer carries the value it once did. A trench line, a strong point, or a fortified ruin might seem completely overrun. Yet that exact grid coordinate becomes a pre-planned kill zone, bleeding the attacker dry. This is the profound tactical shift of this war. When we analyze the broader operational pattern, the logic is undeniable. The Ukrainian High Command knows it cannot afford a last-stand defense over every square meter of Earth. Instead, they have weaponized tactical flexibility. They use terrain to funnel enemy advances, small scout units to trigger the trap, and heavy drone-coordinated artillery to pulverize them. Therefore, a temporary tactical withdrawal must never be mistaken for a rout. Under the unblinking eye of overhead surveillance, newly seized ground quickly transforms into a liability. If persistent drone surveillance and precise timing continue to dominate, the theater battles will not be decided by who physically occupies a grid first, but by who owns the next 10 minutes. What is your assessment? Let me know below. Will this doctrine of active defense sweep the entire front, or will the Russian military adapt and break the cycle? If you found this strategic breakdown valuable, please hit like and subscribe to Military Force for more high-level, tactical, and strategic analysis.